Hi, this is Simon Saltzman, Outer Critics Circle president, and you are listening to Dave's Gone By on UNC Radio.
Here on the 13th Annual Total Theater Tony Show, someone who's been with us pretty much from the very beginning. In fact, when we were doing it back on Long Island, he would join us in person to do these Tony programs celebrating the theater, celebrating Broadway. He's Simon Saltzman. He is a writer for US 1 newspaper in Princeton, New Jersey. He also writes the theater reviews for Curtain Up, and he has his own blog called SimonSeez.com, Simon, SEEZ.com, and he is the president of the Outer Critics Circle. So before we even get to the Tonys, let me ask you, how did the OCC ceremony go? Any great anecdotes, any cool stories?
Yeah, I don't know, you may have seen, our big guest winner was Bette Midler. We were never sure whether she'd actually show up. Of course, she won, so you'd expect a winner to show up, but she not only showed up, but she got up at the podium and regaled us for 10 minutes. I mean, hilarious. She was just charming and delightful, and she wore a big Carmen Miranda-type turban. She looked terrific. What can I say? She was the star of the evening. We'll get to Hello, Dolly maybe a little bit later,
Oh, we will get to it later. It's in your category of revival of a musical.
Yeah, we're talking about Best Revival. What strikes me most is that the Tonys had only 3 contenders: Falsettos, Hello, Dolly, and Miss Saigon. And for some reason, which is not clear to me, is why they couldn't include Sunset Boulevard. Given a very special production element by making it more of a concert version, with a 40-piece orchestra on the stage. It included some scenic and visual effects, mostly like we see at the City Center Encore series. We missed the huge monstrosity of the set that originally made the show so awesome. Remember, it rose out of the depths of the theater on a massive hydraulic lift, and everyone went ooh and ah. The show itself is somewhat cheesy. I don't know. The melodic score doesn't really pay off like the classic movie upon which it's based. And hey, enough about that show and Glenn Close's kabuki-like performance.
Well, do you have any regrets also that the revival of Cats did not get a nod from the Tonys?
Yeah, that also. From my perspective, the dancing in Cats with this revival was superior to the original. I think dance changes with the times and with just the way dancers are now physically able to do more. I don't know how that's possible, but just like the Olympics. So the dancing in this version of Cats was even more exciting and more acrobatic than it was before. So I loved this production.
Now those two, the Sunset Boulevard and Cats, were not nominated for Best Revival of a Musical by the Tony nominators. However, the shows that were included Miss Saigon, Hello, Dolly, and Falsettos. Simon, your thoughts?
The Tony Committee doesn't have the pleasure to consider the Irish repertory's glorious, if it was scaled down, revival of Finian's Rainbow and the thrilling up-close and personal Sweeney Todd. That was imported from London and still running downtown, but with an American cast. But you can still get meat pies if you go to the theater. They're serving delicious meat pies with the show, which is a wonderful...
Oh, you just reminded... Well, the Tonys don't consider off-Broadway. They just don't. But you reminded me of a revival that did not get nominated, could not get nominated because it wasn't up for contention. But did you see the revival of Sunday in the Park with George on Broadway?
The second stringers were not invited. Very few of the reviewers, of course, the Times and a few other on the A-list, I guess you could say, were invited. But the general run of critics were not invited to this. It was such a short run, they were sold out, and they couldn't afford to make back their nut if they gave away press seats. So I did not see it, sadly.
Do you see that as an ominous harbinger of things to come, where we're going to get more and more shows on Broadway that the first-string critics get to, and then people like us are kind of like, it's a limited run, we got to pay back?
I'm a nominator, as you know, with the Outer Critics Circle, as well as being president. So I generally don't get ignored when it comes to anything. But in that case, I was. So I don't know if it's going to forecast whether tickets will become scarcer for critics, but certainly the prices are going up. I know that now with the kind of pricing we have on Broadway, what do they call it? Flexible box office. You can go to the box office and pay $878 to see Hello, Dolly or Hamilton, which is incredible. If I were a ticket buyer, I'd be bowled over walking up and seeing that that's available for that night to pay that kind of money. It's a little scary, you know.
The fact that we're critics helps because 99% of the time we get free tickets, sometimes 2 free tickets, but it makes us feel a little more valuable in the fact that we still get freebies when tickets are now $150, $850. And back when I started, top Broadway ticket prices were $40 or $50, you know.
Go back to $9.90.
What was that? I missed that.
I can go back to $9.90.
Wow. For what show?
Oh, I actually remember paying $9.90 to sit in the balcony for On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, because the orchestra seats were $11.50, and it was the very first time that Broadway ticket prices rose above $10. So I think that was about 1964, 65. So at that time, you were still able to go to a show anywhere from $2.40, $3.60, $4.80, you know, and then up to $10 if you wanted to. So prices really just skyrocketed after that.
Not to go too off topic, but a couple of weeks ago we had in the neighborhood a writer named Ron Fassler, and he's got this book called Up in the Cheap Seats, and it's all about his early years in the 60s and really mostly the 70s, going to see Broadway on his own steam. He was just a kid with a notebook reviewing for himself all these shows he was seeing. Part of it was where he sat and how much he paid or how little he paid for tickets back then. It's a delightful book. If you ever get a chance to read it,
I will.
recommend
no,
it.
I have ticket stubs in a fishbowl that I've been collecting since childhood, and I have a South Pacific ticket for $4.80 orchestra seat for Saturday afternoon. $4.80 in the orchestra, South Pacific. What can I tell you? Anyway, meanwhile, back at the Tonys, right?
Yes, sorry. Back at the Tonys, best revival of a musical, yes.
I don't know what the prospects are for Falsettos. That's the William Finn opus, you know, that combined 3 one-actors and set during the height of the AIDS crisis. Mm-hmm. It's about a bisexual family man with his gay lover who contracts AIDS. But anyway, this production seemed a little coy and pretentiously flippant, and I don't know. It had the terrific Christian Borle as the star, and he strangely failed to get the nomination for playing the lead Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, which is actually running right now. Actually garnered no Tony nominations whatsoever.
Right.
You know, and I'm still sorry that the terrific Miss Saigon not likely to win. It's actually better than the original in many ways.
Oh.
I don't think it has a chance in hell against Hello, Dolly.
Well, yeah. They're just going to wrap this one with a bow on top and deliver it to Hello, Dolly, and I'm sure Bette Midler as lead actress. Did you love Hello, Dolly as much as everyone else does? And I have to say, I have issues with it, but I did still love it.
I have really big issues. I mean, if I can be totally honest,
Please.
I love Bette. I've watched her career ever since, you know, she sang with Barry Manilow, and I've seen every one of her reviews. This is her second book show ever. Look, she can't sing. She hovers around the notes. She moves, she struts, she poses and postures, and we love her. Is it a great performance? No.
Thank you. I mean, I loved the production, but I've got to say, I think Bette Midler's way overrated in the performance that she's giving, even though she's a star, even though she does carry the show. The huzzas that
It's not an outstanding performance.
No.
It's a self-aggrandizing showpiece. I don't want to be too cruel, because I love her, but, you know.
So, let me ask you. We know Hello, Dolly will win. You would vote for Miss Saigon if you were a Tony voter?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a gorgeous show. It has a great score, a wonderful leading lady.
Ava Noblezada, yeah.
To me, that was the best revival.
Now, Simon, what was your favorite show on, off, or off Broadway the whole season?
That's a tough question. I would say Doll's House Part 2 was the most startling, you know, and original new play. Nora comes back. But as far as a new play goes, it was thrilling. Oh, I loved Indecent. That, too, was a terrific show. And Sweat. Oslo's probably going to win, but to me, it was overly talky, too long. It tended to be a little boring. But Doll's House and Sweat were the 2 dynamic shows.
And last question for you, Simon. Since you are covering not only Broadway and off-Broadway theater, but you write about New Jersey theater. What's the best thing you saw in New Jersey this year?
Oh, that's a tough question. production. I don't know if I'm supposed to remember a whole season. I usually tend to remember just last night, if that.
Yeah.
But, I just saw a really lovely production just last night of Mary Poppins at the Paper Mill Playhouse.
Oh.
So that's our state theater. Been going since the middle 1940s. And their productions are comparable to anything you see on Broadway, certainly in terms of staging and sets and lighting and costumes. You get a Broadway show. And let's see, Ken Ludwig, he wrote, Lend Me a Tenor, but he has, Comedy of Tenors. That's his sequel, played both at Paper Mill and at Princeton's McCarter Theater this year. And I would suspect it's going to come to Broadway, and it's a wonderfully funny show. And it takes place years after Lend Me a Tenor.
Nice. It is, of course, really nice to talk to Simon Saltzman every year here on the Total Theater Tony Show. Remember, you can read him in US 1 newspapers. He writes also for CurtainUp.com. And check out his blog, simonsees.com. Simon, we're very happy to hear you, if not see you, in the neighborhood.
David, I want to ask you one more question, since we're in agreement with Hello, Dolly. Did you see Natasha and Pierre and Ted and Alice and all that? And the Great Comet?
Alas, I did not see it, no. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in the middle?
I hated it.
Oh.
Let's leave on that note.
Okay, let's
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.